Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the AmaruKhan Band of Indians, and we're on location in one of my absolute favorite places on earth, which many of my favorite places happen to be in nature, of course, to have a quick discussion about what it means to take care of yourself. And this is going to be a video that's cross-posted. So hopefully this makes sense, because I'm not going to make two videos. I was like, doesn't make any sense. As a benefit, as an offer of incarnating on this planet, we have the opportunity to learn necessary skills to be able to provide for yourself. Meaning there is a safety net. There's a safety net if people are unable to provide for themselves. But for the people who are able to provide for themselves, there's the opportunity to actually do that, to take control over that part of your care. And a lot of people, I'm finding out, they don't understand that. And so I want to go through that from a spiritual perspective and also into the practical perspective. So this is going to be posted on a mostly spiritual channel, and this is also going to be posted on a practical channel. I hope that each of the different audiences can understand what I'm trying to say and understand that it really does go together. There's been a lot of effort to separate these things out, and so when you're hearing people talk about them, you don't understand that they truly do go together. The physical world is not separate from the spiritual world. The spiritual world is not separate from the physical world. What's different is the terminology. And so if you can understand the general concepts, then you can understand the terminology. Now that is what we do in our tribe. Our tribe, as I've mentioned several times, is a primarily paperwork tribe, meaning we're not primarily getting involved in a lot of different cultural things, because there's a lot of tribes that do cultural things, and you are welcome to join or partner with other tribes if you desire to be a more cultural tribe. Another thing that we encourage, I specifically encourage, is for people to start their own tribe. You take what you learn from me and you start your own group. This is also a difference between me and not only other tribal leaders, but other people on the paperwork side of things. Most of these people are trying to accumulate power by accumulating people. And my power does not come from this physical place. So I don't need to accumulate people to have more power. That's not how it works for me, although I do know that's how it works for other people. So if you are interested in partnering with us, right now we are working on establishing some things. One of the different aspects that I'm going to discuss, and we'll be moving forward, is, talking about more of those things. And as I go through this discussion, you'll see what I mean. But if you're interested, please look at the link in the bio. There's a link to our Telegram groups. There's also the email address for the tribe and my email address as well. If you want to reach out to me and ask questions, I field questions. I schedule phone calls. I believe that this is not something that can be done just by interacting on the internet and not having a co-creative process. And so I am looking for people who want to co-create this planetary experience, and they're not running away from the planetary experience because they're tired of it, which a lot of people are. So let's get into the actual discussion. There's a way that you can provide for yourself. even if you're a spiritual person. Now, from the spiritual side, we have been told that if you are a spiritual person, you're supposed to let God, the Father, take care of you. Now, that is an option. But people don't understand that when you allow God the Father to take care of you, that means you have to abide by his rules and his standards. And most people don't understand that when you make that kind of contract to say, I am going to let this God take care of me, that what that means, what that looks like. If you believe in the creator of all things, then that particular God is going to be one who binds you to the constellations and to the functioning of the zodiac. If you believe in a lesser God, i.e. Jehovah or Allah, or even the pagan gods like Zeus, or whoever, all of those gods have rules that you have to follow. The God I have the most observational experience seeing how he works in people's lives is Jehovah, and that particular entity is one that really they really do things in a way that you will get to where you're going, but he has a very particular pace at which he operates. And so a lot of times it will just take a long time, and the results are not replicatable, meaning you have to have a personal relationship with Jehovah yourself in order to have the results that a person who interacts with Jehovah is having. I hope that makes sense. So while that's fine and well, there is another option. Now, the problem I have with the people who only talk about paperwork and don't actually bring it into the spiritual is that they're also dealing with a God of the paperwork, who I have identified, but it's not important for this discussion. So there's a particular God over the bureaucracy, which is the paperwork, that you have to interact with in order to get the paperwork done properly. But in order to interact with that particular entity, you have to sacrifice your belief in the other entities, meaning that is a quote-unquote jealous God who only allows you to do what they perpetuate as the answer. So if you want to figure out how to get around or navigate through this, you have to learn how to integrate these two processes into your own personal philosophy. If you've been watching my spiritual channel, I talk about philosophy a lot. It's really important to have your own personal philosophy that you come to with your inner voice. It's really, really important because your personal philosophy dictates how these different quote-unquote lesser gods are able to interact with you. If your personal philosophy is based off of a lot of stuff that you've taken from other people without doing the internal questioning yourself, then you are subject to the gods that those people interact with. That's how it works. So while you can take stuff from other people's philosophy, you want to integrate it into a part of who you are and see if it matches your frequency, because even the paperwork is about frequency. It's about these different entities. It's about integrating this all together so that you can be a whole and complete person. Now, I have come up with some terminology that I think will be helpful for people who are trying to understand what the reason why you would involve yourself with any of this stuff, whether it be religion or whether it be paperwork. Why would you do any of it? And it's this simple. Jesus gave us the example. It's just that many people were incapable of understanding and processing this example, because when Jesus ascended, he said he was going to leave the comforter being the Holy Spirit. A lot of people do not have access to the Holy Spirit. What they have is access to these different gods who are pretending to be the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit will bring everything together to you the Holy Spirit will bring it all together. It will not leave one part here, one part there, without bringing it to a culminating cycle that coincides with the zodiacal cycle. So basically, new moons is when you new moons are receiving moons, meaning you receive knowledge in new moons, and full moons is when you get through boundaries or problems. You overcome obstacles with full moons. That's the natural cycle. So if the Holy Spirit is not bringing you new information with new moons and, you know, helping you break through obstacles during full moons, you might not be dealing with the Holy Spirit. That's just, you know, a baseline of how that works. It should be bringing everything to you in a cycle. Now, if you know your chart, if you've done your research on who you are as a person, what your quote unquote contract was, because that's what your chart is. It is your contract for this incarnation cycle. It is what you are sent here to do. It's very, very specific. You do have free will, but your free will is always going to go back into that somewhere in your zodiacal structure. And that is, again, it's a feature. It's not a it's a benefit. It's a helpful thing if you're trying to validate what you're feeling on the inside, and then you can turn around and find it in your chart, which I have done many, many times. So the way to understand this is that in the example that Jesus gave us, okay? First, you have to pay your debts. That's one. He did it in a reverse order, okay? First, the order he did it in is reverse. But he paid his debt. What was the debt that he paid? He paid with his life on the cross. That was the debt that he paid, okay? Then you have an indenture. Your indenture, if you're familiar with trust, is your works, your words, the things that you do, the things that you want to be done. That is your indenture. And with Jesus, it was his stories, his apostles, the things that he actually did, the actual New Testament of the Bible. That is the indenture for Jesus. And then the last thing, which is actually first, is you pay for your future ability to live. And the way he did that was with his birth. When Jesus was born, he set the foundation for he literally gave surety, if you're familiar with that term, for his future cost. Whatever it was going to cost him in the future to live was handled when he was born. Now, I could probably go into some deep philosophy on this, but there's no need to. This is going to be cross-posted. This is just an overview. So we have that as our example. Now, how does that, thank you, we have that as our example. Now, how do you actually, in the real world, what does that look like? In the paperwork world, what does that look like? It looks like this. If you're a secure party creditor, you have done about 1.5 of these things, okay? And if you're a spiritual person, you've also done about 1.5 of these things. In order to do all of these things, you have to, again, have the philosophy, the understanding of how to bring it all together. So if you're a secure party creditor, if you have done your indemnity bond, you have paid your debts. That's what Jesus did on the cross. You paid your debts. You have taken care of that part. If the trust indenture, it comes in multiple ways. So if you're a spiritual person, you've done your trust indenture by getting to know your spiritual gifts, more than likely documenting them, being a good steward of the spiritual things you were given. If you're a secure party creditor, you have done this by sending in your quote-unquote first treasury packet, which changes your status. Spiritual people have changed your status in the spiritual world, and people who are secure party creditors have changed your status in the physical world. Now, these two things are both important, but so it's not like one is better than the other. I'm just explaining to you what that is. There's a way to bring it all together. And then spiritual people have paid their future debts by or their future cost of living by investing in their spiritual gifts. And the people who have done the secure party process have not done that. So the people who have done the spiritual work have not actually paid their previous debts. And the people who have done the physical work have not actually done anything for the future, which is why you have to do them both together. So what would that look like? Or what am I proposing as a solution? Because there are many ways to solve this problem. If you go and look on any number of channels, they will tell you how to solve any of these problems, and they will give you solutions, and those solutions may work. Do not buy my philosophy just because I'm selling it. If you believe, if it resonates with you, then I'm offering you a philosophy that may work. You would take this back to your spirit team. If you're not a spiritual person, if you're a paperwork person, you would think it over, look at my proposal, and then decide if you are willing to accept my offer or if my offer is not good for you. This is how contracts work. So that's what the whole, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So this is the solution that I'm proposing for people. You become a secure party creditor. What that means is you do a packet, which is your trust indenture. Understand that that changing of your status is your trust indenture. Now, if you've just done a regular secure party process, you have not done a full trust indenture. There's some more documents that you need to include that we talk about over here within the tribe, which I'll make another video and go over, because I am going to put this stuff out there so people can do their own research. But like I said, we do have a group, so you're not going to be limited to waiting for our group to get to it. Some people may have some of these things done and they just want to finish this stuff up. That's not a problem. You will have that opportunity. I feel like it's much better for me to present the information to everybody and let people make their own discoveries, choices, whatever it may be, as opposed to trying to tell y'all what to do, because that doesn't make any sense. The people who need to get the information need to get it, and someone needs to give it to them, and no one is giving it to them. That's what I personally notice. Okay, so you become a secure party creditor. The first packet you send in as a secure party creditor has to deal with your status. Your status has to deal with your trust indenture. Everyone has heard of the Cestacue trust that comes along with your social security number. A question that I ask that no one could answer is, where is the trust indenture? If that is a trust, where is the indenture? And for people who don't know what a trust indenture is basically a business plan for the trust. In the corporate world, in the commercial world, you have a business plan. In the trust world, you have an indenture. They're the same thing. I don't care what people tell you, you know, not going into my credentials and all of that, but I am a business person. I have a master's degree in business. I have an almost PhD degree in business. I'm very familiar with the structure of business. And so I'm not going to, you can do your own research on that. I'm giving you the terms. You can look them up. But I am telling you, a trust indenture and a business plan are the same thing. If you are a person, especially on the spiritual side, who has done a business plan for your life, or we talk about doing contracts for the ecumenical start of the year, where you make a contract with your spirit team, that is a part of your trust indenture. That is a part of your trust res, as it's called. So the changing of the status is literally your trust indenture. Now, the thing that they do with the most of the secure party creditor processes, they leave some of the very important documents out. What are the two most important documents that are left? Three most important documents that are left out. One is the Emancipation Proclamation, where you emancipate your slaves, because this video might be a little long. When you were given a social security number, they made you a slave owner. That social security number became the slave to the living person. Okay, so you have to emancipate that slave. This includes any numbers they assign to you. Social security numbers, other EIN numbers, all those things have to be emancipated, okay? It doesn't mean that you can't use them. That's not what emancipated means. It means that you have a contract of how much it costs to use those different things, to work with them. You also have a security agreement. Those are things that are in the secure creditor process, but just so you have an understanding of what that means. The next most important document they left out is a manumission. The manumission document, and you can look up emancipation and manumission on YouTube, and you will see lots of videos of these things together. The manumission document is one that releases the person, the physical body of the person. When people got emancipated, the emancipation only freed their quote-unquote spirit. It did not free their physical body. In order for your physical body to be freed, you had to have manumission documents. And there's something called there's a kind of manumission that was given out when this whole stuff was coming out, where if you did something if you were a quote-unquote black person and you did something for a quote-unquote white person, you were given a special kind of manumission where they left you alone and let you do your business without interfering with them. This is why, as a person who has studied millionaires, black millionaires, quote-unquote, at the turn of the century, this is why they were able to do what they were doing, because they were providing something of use. And so they were given either physical or, understood manumission documents to operate. This is why you have so many millionaires at this time. They were making themselves useful, and the ones who could make themselves useful were given manumission. Okay? The third document is your rescission of surety. Without going into too much detail, your rescission of surety tells these individuals you are rescinding, you're taking back your signature. Anything that you signed, any document you signed prior to doing this process is null and void, because you were not of right mind to sign this. Now, this has to deal with common law, which we do have a group. We're going to go back over some of this common law stuff. But if you were not of sound mind, your signature is invalid. And when you wake up and realize that you need to take charge of your life, you need to rescind your signature. That's just a important thing to do. Those are the three documents that are very important that are not included in the secure creditor process. So if you've done the secure creditor process, you'll have to send an updated status packet to the Treasury. It's not that difficult. Now, if you are a secure creditor, then you know about the indemnity bond. That's the $100 million bond that you put on file with the Treasury. But what you don't understand is that bond is to cover debts. It is to pay your debts. What are your debts? You don't know. You literally don't know what your debts are. You have no idea. And as a person who has been through many different processes, you have no idea if these companies that you are in contract with even sent your debts to the Treasury. You don't know. You don't know if they charge you for the B-52 bomber they got, or the new towers they put up, or, the election rigging. You don't know what they charge you for. The indemnity bond covers any debts they have assigned to you. You have no idea what these debts are. They won't tell you. You can ask until you're blue in the face. You put the bond on file. That's why that bond is secured by your signature. The fact that you're a living person is what makes that bond valid. Okay? That's the indemnity bond. If you're a secure creditor, then you've already done that. Now, how do you take care of your future? How do you take care of your current expenses? That is done with a surety bond. And the surety bond that we do within our group is a silver surety bond with 21 ounces of silver. You may or may not have even heard about this. This is talked about a lot privately within groups of people. They don't want people to know this. I don't know why. I don't care, actually. It's really important that you have a surety bond. The surety bond is secured by 21 ounces of silver. Now, something that I found out in my research of this kind of thing is that this is how our people operated, our people as in Americans, and not just in America, everywhere. This is how humanity operated prior to the banking cabal establishing themselves in 1913 in America. We dealt in bonds. We would have a bond backed by silver or gold, and it would be on file. And we would go to our banker and say, hey, I need notes. They were actual physical notes to take to X, Y, and Z because I'm trying to buy so on and so forth. That is how we operated. If we're going to get back to operating like that, people have to talk about it. There cannot be so much secrecy on the for the goal of selling products on the side of the paperwork community, which I don't even know what you call these people. Let's call them the paperwork community. There cannot be so much secrecy on the side of the paperwork community that they don't bring these things together so you understand. This is how our people operate. So if you're wondering why, let's say, for example, you've been a secure party creditor for a long time, you're wondering why your paperwork doesn't work. Well, your paperwork doesn't work because you didn't rescind your signature. So all of your signatures that you put out are valid. If you include a rescission of signature, a rescission of surety document with the rest of your paperwork that you're sending out, I bet you have a different response. I mean, that's not the only thing, but I'm just saying, like, that's really important. On the side of the people who are on the spiritual side, you have made a contract with your God, whatever creator or God it is that you deal with, and that God then has to round up angels to come around, or demons, depending on who you're dealing with, to come around and fulfill your request for the future. So when you need something, you have to go to your God puts the word out that you need it, and then the angels have to run around and get that stuff done. Well, that's really inefficient because most of our needs can be handled with money. That's seem like an obvious statement. Most of our needs can be handled with money. So if you get yourself access to money, then these angels don't have to be running around like crazy to get you money for rent, money for food, money for clothes, a car, basic necessities. The spirit team can focus on your bigger mission and your bigger goal and your bigger purpose. That's the benefit of this to people in the spiritual community. You can get your day-to-day needs resolved. You can get your day-to-day needs resolved so that your spirit team can work on your bigger mission. You can get new papers on what it is that you're here to do. You can go deeper into your chart because it's all in your chart. You can go deeper into your chart, into your actual mission. You can complete the mission you were sent here to complete if you get access to money. Now, you can't do one of these things by themselves. None of this stuff by itself work. That is why you have to put the spiritual side with the physical side. It doesn't work by itself, and it's all documented. There's no human in history that doesn't have documentation, because the stars always shine. The sun and the moon was placed here for times and seasons. You were born at a time. You were born at a season for a very certain, specific, grand reason. Those things cannot be taken from anyone. But they can be delayed. They can be stolen by people infiltrating your energy. They can be mishandled. They can be, you can be misled away from what you're supposed to be doing. And that is really why my tribe is focusing on paperwork. Paperwork is, once you have it in paper, it can't be taken away from you. Once you have your papers, you have them, because the paper is a physical representation of the knowledge in your head. This is why the paperwork is important. If you can put it on paper, you have it in your head. If you don't physically put it on paper, we don't do paperwork for people. You have to do your own paperwork. I have templates, but you have to do the research. You have to make them the correct way, again, or they won't work. And we don't just send you out there like a lot of these gurus and say, hey, you figure this out yourself. No, That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if 100 out of 100 indentures look the same. Your indenture is actually private. It's really not to be given out to anyone. You give your indenture to the government because the government is the one holding the trust. But that's the only person you give your indenture to. And you have to give it to several agencies within the government because they don't communicate with each other. That's not your problem. You give it to the different agencies when it comes up. That's how it works. But as far as giving it to these companies, and you know, every time you have an incident with the police or whatever, do you give them your trust indenture? No. You just give them what's relevant. If you we in this tribe take the path of least resistance. We're not arguing with anybody. We understand that we are citizens of this country, not only under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, but also there's an Indian Act in 1957 that made all Native persons citizens. So we understand that we're citizens. We're not arguing about being citizens. What we're arguing about is jurisdiction. And there's really not an argument because you, with your trust indenture, can remove yourself from the jurisdiction. Then you use your tribal status to establish what jurisdiction you're under. It's really simple. No, you don't need to ride around without a driver's license. You get an indigenous driver's license. No, you don't need to ride around without tags. You get tribal tags. If someone pulls you over, you give them what they request. Does that mean you give up your driver's license? No. You keep your driver's license if you have to interact with their agents. Do you give up your passport? No. You keep your passport because you're a citizen national of this country. See, the problem that the paperwork people have is that they're selling you give up everything. This is a problem that the spiritual people too. They say, oh no, you have to give everything up in order to follow Christ, which they are the Christ. But what if you're the Christ? Did Jesus give anything up to follow himself? Or did he train people to be more like him? This is the part that nobody wants to do. They don't want to train people to be more like them. And Jesus was always trying to get the disciples to understand, like when he gave them the Great Commission. Now you go out and be the fishers of men. Now you go out and spread the good news. The good news is you can pay your own debts. You don't need Jesus to pay your debts. You also can pay for your own present, your own future expenses. You can pay your own future expenses too. And you can be free in the moment with your trust indenture. That is the secret of the Christ story. And the churches and the religious groups and the spiritual community and even the paperwork groups are selling you everything but what I am talking about. They want you to do everything but take control, and you become the Jesus. You become the Christ. This is how you become the Christ consciousness, not whatever new age, whatever stuff people are talking about. You become the Christ consciousness by becoming the Christ, the one who paid your past. You dictate your present, and you pay your future. This is what Christ did. This is the 1, 2, 3 of it. Literally, indemnity bond, 2, trust indenture, 3, surety bond. That's it. It's that simple. One thing I tell people if you decide to do paperwork with us is that there's an end to this process. No, you don't have to do all this stuff forever. And most people doing paperwork processes do not tell you that there's an end. There is an end. You do not have to do this forever. You do not have to pay me forever. You don't have to pay me at all. Most of this stuff is free on the internet if you know where to look, if people will tell you what the stuff is actually called instead of lying about it. You don't really need me. I have been tapped to offer these processes as a gift, because freely was given to me and freely I will give. Some of the stuff isn't free to do, so of course there's costs associated with doing it, but those costs are not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those costs are not hundreds of dollars. For some things, it costs hundreds of dollars, but what you get back is quadruple or more of what you pay, because of the nature of the process. There's no need to like delineate, but if you're talking about administrative process, because we're an administrative tribe, you're talking about paperwork, administrative. You're talking about administrative processes. They have a cost because you have to work within the system that the government has set up in order for them to be valid, because there are rules. So you have to follow the rules. All of this is talking about how to follow the rules, how to follow the rules that was set up for you to be successful. Now, if you're familiar with Patrick Devine, he had 100% of this correct. He just didn't have it in the right order. And I think that the reason he didn't have this quite in the right order was because it wasn't time yet. We are now in a time period from a spiritual perspective, going into Pluto and Aquarius, where people are not going to be working regular jobs like they did. People are not going to be devoting their energy to things that don't produce fruit. We're in a time period where instant manifestations can happen and things can just change for you on a dime. That's the time period we're in. And when he was doing his stuff, we were still in Pluto and Capricorn. We weren't there yet. Just like many of the other fathers of the paperwork field, it wasn't that time yet. We weren't in the time period where people had to fulfill their spiritual contracts. However, Pluto in Aquarius is fulfilling of spiritual contracts. And the only way that can be done is if there's pioneers and groups of people that come together for the mutual benefit of fulfilling these contracts. One of the fulfillment of contracts that I hope to see within this 20-year period is people becoming their own Christ. And not that you give up the Christ that set the tone. No, you revere him for setting the tone, for being bold enough to give us the solution. But you don't have to wait for him to become your own Christ. You don't have to wait for his return. The return people are waiting for is their own return to this understanding. They think that Christ is going to come and rapture them. The rapture is when you remove yourself from the system, poof, you disappeared. But you're still there, like a ghost, like an entity, one of these angels who is able to help the people who are not quite ready to evolve. And that's the last thing I want to talk about briefly. There are people who are not ready for these processes, and I understand that, and I feel very deeply for those people who are incapable of grasping this knowledge. So with the formation of tribes, not just my tribe, but people forming their own tribes to handle their own families, you will be able to help people within your network overcome these times until such time as they're ready to become their own Christ. And some people will never become their own Christ. It saddens me very much, but it is true. And so some people need to be taken care of, and that's also well within our ability to do when you understand these processes. You can take care of as many people as you have to. That's the benefit of doing this. Look at Jesus. He had 12 disciples, then he had 70 more. Then what did Jesus do? Many times he fed 5,000 people with 2 loaves of bread, or 7 loaves of bread and 2 fish. What is that? Or what would that look like for you? That would look like for me, we need money for Thanksgiving dinner. How are we going to do this trip? How are we going to get our kids through college? And you, knowing these processes, go and pull some cash out. Send some cash, make the payment, don't say anything, set up a scholarship, pay for the dinner, whatever the case may be. Is that not what Jesus did? Did he not just say, all these people are hungry? We can't send these people away hungry. They've been following me, family, they've been following me. Let's just get these people some food. What would that look like in the real world? I'm just going to go now. I could just call, you know, Publix and place an order and go and pick up a platter of chicken. Like, this is simple. These things are not complicated. You do not have to beat your family members over the head to do this stuff. It's unnecessary. You do it. Take care of yourself. You form a group, and the people who want to do it, they learn, and when they're ready, they become aware and awakened to you know, who they are and what their capabilities are. You have the whole outline set. All they got to do is plug into what you've already done. You might got to go back over it a few times, whatever, or you send them to us. We're going to be doing this for a long time. My youngest is 3, so I've got many years of this before all of my kids are, you know, acclimated into this system. For sure, this whole 20-year Jupiter I'm sorry, Pluto in Aquarius transit, I'm gonna be doing this because my youngest is 3, so I can't stop until he turns 25 and he's capable of taking over his own accounts. So you got me at least for 20 years. Send them over to us. We'll go through the stuff with them, no problem, easy peasy. Boom, they could still be a member of your tribe. I don't care. I'm not doing this for money, and that's how I want to end this video. I want you to understand, I'm not doing this for money. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, my power does not come from stealing other people's energy. I get my power from elsewhere. Power is money. All of that I get from elsewhere. I don't get it from this realm. It don't come from this realm. And so therefore it can't be taken from me. It can be added unto me. It can be invested into me, but I understand that it don't come from this realm. It comes from outside of this realm. And that's something that you need to understand. When you are doing this stuff, with this knowledge, it comes from outside of this realm. It is literally how things were set up from the foundation of the earth. We just didn't have access to that information until this time, and now we have access to it. So there's something that you can do to integrate all of these things together. And so I do hope that that makes sense. I hope that I have illuminated some things for you that have previously been question marks in your head. And of course, if you're interested again in partnering up with us, the email is in the description. Our link to our tribe is in the description. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave your comments under the video or reach out to me in email. So peace and blessings to each one of you all, and we'll see you in the next video.